Hello, folks. If you're out there joining us, thank you so much for being on. We are going to give folks a few more moments just to make sure that everybody is able to join us. Thank you all so much for streaming us via YouTube. We're excited to be able to take on this many folks. We had almost 1,000 people register to join us tonight, and so it is going to be a lot of people in the chat box and people that are able to communicate with us, or not chat box, but I guess the comment section on YouTube in that sense. Excuse me, I still think I'm in a Zoom world. But we're excited to be on here. So we're going to give folks a few more minutes to hop on. So thank you everybody again for being on. Again, if you're just joining us and you want to pop into the comment section, please make sure that you tell us where you're joining us from in North Carolina. Thank you all so much for caring about North Carolina Supreme Court race and also what's going on right now nationally. We know that it's a scary time for everybody out there, but we're hoping that you're going to leave this call tonight feeling uplifted. So again, we're going to wait about one more minute before we get started, and text your friends and make sure they're on here too and that they're able to get the link and send out and share on your platforms, social platforms for us, and help us out. Make sure that everybody gets the opportunity to hear what North Carolina Democrats are up to right now. All right, folks, we are going to go ahead and get started. Again, thank you all for joining us here tonight with the North Carolina Democrats. I'm really excited to have everybody's participation and the opportunity that to share with you all that there is a pathway forward out of the bleak spot that we find ourselves in. I know that people right now might be feeling hopeless. I know that you might be feeling like there's not really a pathway forward that you can find and figure out how to get involved with. And I know a lot of you all are here tonight because you want to find the community across the state that you need right now in one of our darkest times. And I'm here to tell you that North Carolina Democrats have been on a pathway forward to build the plan that we need to take back our courts by 2028, but also to be able to protect people across North Carolina right now. I'm excited because tonight we have with us Congresswoman Deborah Ross, and also Supreme Court Justice Allison Riggs, who's going to be able to talk to you all a little bit about the fight that we're in right now, both at the federal level and the state level. And we're also going to be able to send you away tonight with marching orders that you need to be able to feel good about what's going on in your backyard and how you can take a part in it. And so I'm going to turn it over right now to our fantastic congressional representative, Deborah Ross, who's going to talk to you all about what we're seeing right now in Congress. Thank you, Congresswoman Ross, for being on with us, for taking time out of your busy schedule tonight, and for giving us the uplifting hope that we need coming out of federal politics right now.
Well, hello, North Carolina Democrats, and thank you for everything that you always do to promote our common values and make sure that we elect the best people. I'm Congresswoman Deborah Ross from the 2nd Congressional District in Wake County. And I want you to know that even though it is like rapid fire horrible in Washington, D.C., the Democrats are fighting back. And we are fighting back with every tool that we have. Our number one tool is our attorneys general, who are challenging these unconstitutional, illegal, cruel, chaotic, and brazen acts of the Trump administration. And aren't we glad that you elected Jeff Jackson to be our attorney general? He is doing a fantastic job, jumped in feet first. There right now are 55 lawsuits challenging the Trump administration's illegal actions. Everything from freezing federal funding to birthright citizenship to the actions of Elon Musk, and we call them the doggies, not Doge, in Washington. And we have had a really, really good run of federal judges who have been appointed by everybody since Ronald Reagan, saying that the actions of the Trump administration are illegal. And Jeff has jumped in and is at the front of the pack doing great work for the state of North Carolina. Jeff and I had a great press conference with folks from the healthcare profession, particularly the community health centers, and with the Wake County Board of Education, and clergy members who just showed up to show their support, a lot because of their work with people who need assistance, and also because of their support of immigrants in North Carolina. So we're doing work in the courts. And I think that the federal courts have seen that they have to meet this moment. Now, you know that we do not have a majority in the House or the Senate, but the House has a very, very slim minority for the Democrats. And so we are using our leverage there. And in the next couple of months, you're really going to see it. Because now that the Republicans have shown that they're going to cut Medicaid, that Social Security and Medicare are on the chopping block, that the Department of Defense is on the chopping block, we are seeing Republicans backsliding. And Democrats are not going to bail out the Republicans unless the Republicans do the right thing and stand up to Donald Trump. Not optimistic about that, but what I'm saying is we are putting their feet to the fire. And then finally, we are making our voices heard. I had a telephone town hall last week, and we're doing these all around the country. 15,000 people dialed in or picked up the phone for my telephone town hall, more than I've ever had. People are fired up, they're upset. And what we have to do, as Nancy Pelosi says, is not agonize, organize. There are so many ways to get involved. I understand there's going to be a rally tomorrow from 3 to 5 at the Capitol. You can sign up to make calls, particularly to Tom Tillis, who is really the most vulnerable person who is on the ballot in 2026. You can work for Anita Earls, who is back on the ballot in 2026. We have a lot of work to do, but I want you to know that the Democrats in Congress are fighting the fight. I have been on the floor talking about the Department of Education, about NIH. We have been in our committee meetings doing some kind of good maneuvers, including trying to subpoena Elon Musk to come before the Oversight Committee, pointing out the hypocrisy of the Trump administration. We have weekly talking points. We're reaching out beyond regular media and the normal channels to influencers and other ways to communicate, but we need your help. We can't do all of this alone, and we know you're tired. We know you're exasperated, but you know, we came through the Revolutionary War. We came through the Civil War. We came through World War II because we came together and we fought for freedom, for democracy, and for the next generation. I want you to know I'm doing this every single solitary day. I have your back. You need to have our back. the two most important races in North Carolina are coming up in 2026. We can get a U.S. Senate seat. We can keep Anita Earls on the Supreme Court. And I know if we keep the faith, we keep up the pressure, we are going to do it. And we're going to flip some seats that people don't even expect, because people are sick and tired of Donald Trump's lies and unelected Elon Musk running amok in Congress. So thank you so, so much for everything you do. I will stay on for a little while. I'm 100% behind Allison Riggs. We've been having press conferences for her, raising money for her, and I think she's going to pull it out despite that despicable Jefferson Griffin. So thank you so much, and thank you for all you do for our party. We will prevail.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Ross, for being on. We really, really appreciate your time. We know that it's extremely valuable right now. And to the point that she just made, North Carolina is a bright spot from this election night. And, we understand that having a Democratic attorney general means that we have somebody that was able to be the first one to sue over Trump's executive order against birthright citizenship that we just saw Attorney General Jackson have a win on this last week. We also saw him sue over the federal government having a funding freeze for aid to go to Western North Carolina, and also the organizations that receive Medicaid, and also people that are receiving SNAP benefits right now across our state. And so it is extremely fortunate we were able to hold that position statewide. And we're also going to be able to utilize our courts to fight back against a Trump administration in every way. And that is something that is victorious, even though we did feel a heavy loss in November. But we have to look to where we have common ground and where we can also fight back on it right now. And so thank you, Congresswoman Ross, for highlighting that and for really bringing to light where our wins are, because we also have to keep those in our minds when we're thinking about what's going on right now across our country. Speaking of her last conversation, or her last talking point about calling your members of Congress, if you're new with us here tonight and you are, a little bit unsure about where to get started, I know it's hard to take the first step, and it always can be when you are new to getting angry about what's going on in politics. Maybe you're somebody, I talked to a woman today in Buncombe County who worked at USAID who lost her job, and along with 3 other people that she knew. And so if you're somebody that is new to this fight, but also really wants to understand where you can take your first step, I'm going to bring up our fantastic training director at the North Carolina Democratic Party, Christy Boer, who's going to walk you all through a great way to get in contact with your members of Congress and also other representatives to make sure that you know how to get in contact and make phone calls to why you're angry with them right now. Christy, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Anderson. So due to popular demand, I'm going to do a training on Wednesday, February 26th at 6 p.m., how to influence your elected officials. So we'll talk about why it's important. It's a numbers game. We need a large volume of calls. Why it's important to call your elected officials, not others. Whether it's Democrat, Republican, we're going to put pressure on all of them. We'll also provide some tools and scripts to find who your representatives are, and depending on the issue that has you most heated, what some of your talking points can be when you call. So I think one of my colleagues is dropping a link in the chat to sign up for that, and I hope to see you on the 26th. Thanks, Anderson.
Thanks, Christy. We're also going to be talking about a little bit of a website called 5 Calls. And so we'll also drop that in the YouTube chat box. But Christy is going to be doing a lot of information about that if you're not already familiar with the site itself. I'm going to turn it over to my second vice chair of the North Carolina Democratic Party, Dr. Kimberly Hardy, who's going to talk a little bit about what's going on at the state level right now, and also where your power really lies in fighting back against the Trump administration. Dr. Hardy?
Thanks so much, Anderson. I'm really glad that all of you were able to be here with us tonight. It's very, very hopeful and inspiring. What we're seeing at the federal level are the same forces of extremism that we see at the state level. We've seen it in our own state legislature here in North Carolina, with them taking power away from the governor and handing it over to the Republicans. Unfortunately, there's a host of examples I could give you where they've done that so far, or at least they're attempting to. But one of the most egregious, especially as it pertains to our fight for Justice Riggs to keep per seat that she won, by the way, is an example is when now the GOP is putting the authority for oversight of the state board of elections with the state auditor's office now that Dave Bullock won the seat. This means that the administration of the state board of elections and the appointment of its members now falls under the Republican purview. And we already see what happens when they try to interfere with the electoral process. Fortunately, in November, we broke the supermajority in the House. So now we'll be able to hold Governor Stein's veto and prevent the worst bills from getting through. We also need to show up and show the General Assembly that we are watching, which is why we invite you to join us every time that we have a Pack the Gallery event. It is incredibly important that they know that we are paying attention. And so Wednesday, February 19th from 12 to 2 in Raleigh, we will be packing the gallery again to let them know that we are watching, to let them know that we intend to hold them accountable for the ways in which they are trying to govern this state and by fiat as opposed to the will of the people. Now, starting now, we need to focus our actions and resources on the things that we can control to bring about change. I have a tendency to say to folks, you have more power than you realize, and you have more power than you're using. And so we want you to start helping us with that. And some things that you can do is help us take more seats in the legislature, unseating Senator Tom Tillis. Even if we don't know who the candidate is right now, we will know. And when we do, let's make sure we support that candidate to unseat him in 2026. And by re-electing Justice Anita Earl to keep her on the Supreme Court when her seat comes up for re-election in 2026 as well. And how can we affect the landscape in which the next election will take place? How do we affect that in 2026? By building up a very strong party infrastructure. So for that, I'm passing it over to my favorite first vice chair of the state Democratic Party, Jonah Garson.
Thank you, Doc Hardy. Hey, everyone. Jonah Garson, first vice chair, NC Dems. Thank you all for being here. So we have the opportunity every 2 years and then on an ongoing basis to come together in our home Democratic communities, our precincts. That's how you should think about them. Some of the most important work that each of us, every single one of us individually can do is in our home Democratic community. You are the most important and the most powerful campaigner and influencer. And we just had a race where our Justice Allison Riggs won by 1%, right? That 1% comes from precinct power. So in mid-March, one of our calls to action, no matter what else you're doing, if you're making those calls to your representatives, if you are helping pack the gallery, we want you to also show up at your precinct meeting. We want you to even consider stepping into precinct leadership. No prior experience is necessary because that work you do of direct voter contact with your neighbors is gold, is gold. There is nothing a big campaign, a US Senate campaign, a presidential campaign, rolling in every 2 to 4 years can do more powerful than you exerting that local muscle, okay? So number one of my calls to action is on top of everything else you're doing, get involved in your local precinct, join your precinct organizing meeting, look for the link that we just dropped into the chat to figure out when your precinct meeting is happening, okay? That's number one. Number two, and this is like a not so fun thing, frankly. What we are going through right now with this litigation to prevent the disenfranchisement of 68,000 plus North Carolina voters, to prevent an election from being overturned, to building a rapid response organizing machine to counter what's coming out of the Trump administration. All of this takes resources. And frankly, I'll be honest with y'all, this $3 million litigation we got dropped on us has been exhausting when it comes to continuing to grow our program. So we are asking you today to consider donating. And when you donate at the link that we're providing, you're splitting a donation between the party and the Justice Riggs campaign, because we are working every day together as hard as we can to win the toughest fight in the courthouse, in the field, and at the ballot box. Okay. And we're in it together. So that's my second ask, okay? Not quite as fun, but if you got some cash for us, bring it on. Thank you. I'm going to now hand it right back to Chair Anderson Clayton, who's going to begin to talk about that litigation more, which is the bear that we are dealing with right now at the state level.
Thank you, Jonah. Thank you, Dr. Hardy. Thank you to all of our folks that are on here tonight, but especially thank you to Justice Riggs. As you all know, we just passed the 100th day of Republicans in North Carolina challenging 67,000 legal voters in the state. And we know that she has been at the heart of that fight and been our warrior for democracy in our party. Justice Riggs won her seat by 734 votes out of over 5 million votes cast in North Carolina last November, and Republicans have just not let up with challenging her seat. And the North Carolina Democratic Party is extremely proud of the effort that she has put up to make sure that we keep our fight and keep our Supreme Court justice seat intact. But Justice Riggs has been a fighter for voters, not just before, or not just on the Supreme Court, but also before that too, throughout her entire career. So it's not a surprise to any of us how hard she has worked to make sure that 67,000 voters can make sure that when they went into the ballot box that they could trust the voting system that they were a part of. So I'm going to turn it over to our warrior of justice, Democratic Supreme Court Justice Allison Riggs, to take it away and talk a little bit more about what's happening right now in her race. Thank you for joining us, Justice Riggs.
Thank you, Anderson. Thank you, Team NCDP, and thank you to every single North Carolina Democrat on this call tonight and fighting with me every single day. I just want to take a couple of minutes to thank you for all that you've done and to remind you, and my dog is going to probably bark in the background, remind you why this fight matters. So, like me, I'm sure you all are like, wait a second, we worked our rear ends off to elect her and others in November. Why are we still having this fight? This is not an inconsequential fight. The Republican Party nationally has put millions and millions of dollars and years into an effort to figure out how to steal elections like they're trying to do right now. And this is work that failed in 2020. It is work that failed in 2022. And it is work that they know they need to win long term because we don't like what's happening here in this country, what the Republicans are doing. So if the people in power, all right, Goose, go outside. My dog has been sick. Come on, go outside. And now he's being ornery. Promise I won't keep this. All right, let me get back to my work. If the people in power can decide that they are only going to respect election results if they like who won, then democracy dies. And if the people in power can decide after an election, we're going to toss certain ballots, change the rules so that we can hold on to power, democracy dies. And so the fight that we're having here in North Carolina, this is the fight for the very heart of our democracy in this country. And it might be a fight that we didn't ask for or we didn't want, but guess what? If I have to put all of my chips on one square, do you know whose square I'm going to put it on? North Carolina Democrats. We are up to this challenge. And I know it's cheesy, right? We're all feeling down and discouraged, but that really trite saying about the devil whispered in her ear, you can't withstand the storm. And she whispered back, I am the storm. We are the storm. And they have picked the fight with the wrong set of people who value democracy, who value each voice being heard and value the rule of law. And they have underestimated us and our willingness to see this to the very end. So I don't want to be here 103 days after the election. I don't want you to be here 103 days after election. But guess what? I also know we have to re-elect Justice Anita Earls in 2026, and I will be damned if 1 ounce of our effort goes to waste. We are going to use this as a springboard to take back our courts in 2028. They are fighting this fight with us over this seat now because we told the world ahead of this election what we were going to do in 2024, 2026, and 2028 to win back our courts for justice. They heard us, you delivered in 2024, and they're running scared. And I am not discouraged. I am determined. And I know that with the North Carolina Democratic Party behind me, that this is a fight that we will not lose. We cannot lose, and we are going to use this momentum to make North Carolina a place where we can all flourish. So thank you all for staying in this fight with me, for not giving up, for laughing kindly when my dog barks in the background. This is what we do. This is how we roll with the punches. But I'm very, very grateful to you all and eager to do whatever I can to help us fight this fight and win it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Justice Riggs, for everything that you are doing right now. And for those of you all that may be new to joining us tonight that are like, I have no idea what's going on in Supreme Court justice race, except for the fact that now I know that 67,000 voters are being challenged. I'm going to turn it over to our fantastic voter protection director of the state party, Kat Lawson, who's going to walk you all through a little bit about the wonky lawsuits that we find ourselves in and what Republicans are trying to do right now. So thank you, Justice Riggs. Kat Lawson, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Anderson. So to give you all the big picture perspective, especially if you are new here, there are 6 total lawsuits that Republicans have filed since August of last year. So the first one that they filed was the North Carolina HAVA lawsuit. This is where they tried to throw out 225,000 registered voters before the election began. They filed another lawsuit in state court in October of 2024 to challenge UOCAVA and UMOVA voters. These are voters who vote from overseas, mostly military personnel and their families, also government workers and folks like that. And then we got into the actual post-election process. So this was when Jefferson Griffin started filing all of his individual voter challenges and election protests in all of the county boards of elections. To get ahead of some of what he was doing, the North Carolina Democratic Party filed its own affirmative lawsuit at the beginning of the month, and then came the absolute deluge from Griffin and the Republicans. So he first filed what is called a writ of prohibition with the state Supreme Court. He then filed his actual protests and appeals from the State Board of Elections. And then the RNC came in and filed another set of voter challenges. And so the ones that we're really focusing on right now are going to be the ones that all happened in those last stages of December. So the Griffin protests are the ones that cover the 67,000 votes. And then the RNC lawsuit is actually challenging more than that. And they're actually trying to have every single state race across North Carolina to get recounted. So here's where we stand today. We can go to the next slide. So that first lawsuit that the Republicans filed back in August, that is happening in federal court. It's been essentially, what's the right way to say this? It's had its legs cut out from under it. So that lawsuit is going forward, but the federal court already decided they could not throw out those 225,000 voters for the 2024 election. The federal courts told the Republicans in advance of the election, you're not going to be allowed to use this theory to reject voters. Similarly, Wake County Superior Court rejected the Republicans' first lawsuit over UOCAVA and UMOVA voters, those overseas voters. And so they were told in advance of the election, no, you're not allowed to throw out those voters, right? Jefferson Griffin didn't care. So the NCDP lawsuit is proceeding in federal court, but the theories that Jefferson Griffin relied on for his lawsuits are the ones that were already told, no, not now, by federal court and by state court. So his writ of prohibition, the first one that he filed, that has already been denied by the North Carolina Supreme Court in order to let the Griffin protests, the ones that are actually appealing the State Board of Election decisions, continue through the state court process. So those proceedings have been going on in Wake County Superior Court. And then the RNC voter challenges, the State Board of Election is the other side of the coin in that particular lawsuit, and they have filed a motion to dismiss that case in Wake Superior Court. But of all of these different cases, there's really only one that is going to be the focus of our attention, and that's Griffin's protests. So for those of you who have been with us through this whole fight, this is the case that's been bounced back and forth between federal court and state court. Many of you joined us in front of the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals while they were fighting about that procedural position. But right now, the Griffin protests are continuing in state court. So here's where that lawsuit stands right now. So as a reminder, that lawsuit and the underlying protests for it all got filed back in December. So this is where he said that there were these 67,000 odd voters that should have their votes discounted, removed from the voter totals after the election was already done. The state board rejected that request, and they said, no, all of these votes should be counted. So now that we have gone on to the next phase, that's been happening in front of Wake County Superior Court. Wake County Superior Court, the judge there has also affirmed the state board's decision and rejected Griffin's request that those votes get thrown out, and has said that all 67,000 odd of those votes should be counted in this election cycle. So what comes next is an appeal to the Court of Appeals. I put a maybe there because there's been something filed with the North Carolina Supreme Court called a bypass petition. So essentially the state board has asked the state Supreme Court to just kind of, let's get this over with as quickly as we can. Can you just take this up now? We don't know yet if they're going to do that. So first, we're assuming that we're going to go to the Court of Appeals. When we're done with the Court of Appeals, we'll go to the North Carolina State Supreme Court. And then based on the decision from the Fourth Circuit about where these cases belong, once the North Carolina Supreme Court is done, if they do something wrong with this case, right, and none of us really trust them to do the right thing here, then we're going to go back to federal court. So Republicans are masterminding this insane process here in North Carolina because it is part of their overall plan. In the same way that we're seeing Project 2025 show up in our federal government, they're also putting down these plans into our state systems as well. And part of that includes using the courts in order to delegitimize and get rid of election results that they don't like. But we're not going to let them. We're going to keep the pressure on the courts. We're going to keep the pressure and the attention of the media on this case to make sure that Justice Riggs, who won her race by 734 votes, more than the number of votes that Paul Newby won his race against Justice Beasley with, we're going to make sure that she gets to keep her seat. And she is the best person to have spearheading this fight that we could possibly ask for. We'll let you know times that we have when we know the oral argument dates in front of the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court for events that we can have, both rallies in front of the courts, but also events to attend those oral arguments. But in the meanwhile, while we're waiting to get those scheduled, there's stuff that you can do right now in order to support these efforts. And so I will kick it over to Elijah King to let you all know what those efforts are.
Thank you so much, Kat, and hello, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. We cannot let money get in the way of this fight. Again, we cannot let money get in the way of this fight. It is expensive. It is important. So to split a donation between the North Carolina Democratic Party and Justice Riggs, the staff will be sending a link tomorrow. Phone banks. I know a lot of people across our state have been doing an amazing job with the phone banking list. Our organizing team has been doing an amazing job. So it's important to engage these voters because they may need to do something to fix their voter file later, even if they didn't do anything wrong. But also these voters should know that the GOP doesn't deserve their votes in the future. With tiny margins in the North Carolina Senate race, 65,000 voters who didn't appreciate this are significant. And so again, a link for phone banks throughout this week will be sent tomorrow via newsletter. So please watch out for that. Tomorrow and next weekend across the state, there are going to be rallies by Common Cause, and I would love to see you there. I think I will be at a few, staff will be at a few. So if you can attend, please do come. Common Cause will be having them again tomorrow and next weekend across the state. And then one of my favorite things on this list, in Alamance County and Saxby-Hall, there's a free event. It's the Disenfranchised Disco. And so if you have time to go boogie down with some Democrats and like-minded folks, please come down to Saxby-Hall, Alamance County, and come dance with us. Thank you so much, Kat, for your important work. And I'm going to be knocking it down to the next person.
Thank you so much, Elijah and Kat. I really, really appreciate it. I hope you all know on here tonight, we really value and respect your time. And so our presentation section is over, but we are going to do a quick Q&A from any of the questions that we find in the chat box. And so I'm going to either call any of the staff members that I think might be able to answer a question, or if you all wanted to have time to post them in our YouTube comment section, feel free to do so. And our staff is going to be monitoring that so we can make sure that we answer them. One of the questions that we found in there though was someone lives in tiny, heavy Republican Yadkin County. Did these county have precinct meetings too, or could they just join the Forsyth County meeting? No, we want you in your backyard because we know that 734 vote win for a Supreme Court justice race meant that every single vote that we had across this state mattered. And that includes, and it especially includes places in rural North Carolina. And plus, we want you talking to people in your own backyard because that's who you have the most impact and the most pull over. And so we're going to be dropping again in the YouTube comment section the link to find your county party. Eddie would love to have you involved in Yadkin County, I know. And we have a fantastic Western North Carolina regional organizing director named Michael Correcchia, who is fantastic too. And that we'll drop the email of in the YouTube comments if that's all right with folks too. And then we'll make sure that you can reach out to him as well, just in case your county party may not get back to you as soon as possible. So we're going to try to make sure that we get you connected with your precinct in your own backyard. Sarah O'Brien is our organizing director for the state party though, and I'd love to see if she has anything to add to that, or if she's got any other comments to add to precinct organizing. So Sarah, do you want to talk about it? I think we might have Sarah frozen for a second. Her audio is now connected. Sarah, can you hear me? Yes, you're here.
Wonderful, excellent. Yeah, no, I think Anderson said it perfectly. We are setting up a. Am I good now? All right.
Sarah, can you hear me?
Yep. So I echo everything that Chair Clayton said. We are working on a robust organizing program for this year. It sets us up for 2 years. It's a way that folks who haven't been part of the party before get to learn who the people are in their community that get to do the work. And so there is a link that has been dropped in to find your precinct meeting. It's going to be populated with more and more meetings coming up. So check back and we will also let you know if you've attended tonight, we'll let you know when we know where your precinct meeting is so that you can be there.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Kat Lawson, this is a question for you. Hopefully this won't drag on until April, but what happens once the Board of Elections shifts to Republican control over Bullock, our new Republican state auditor? Can they withdraw the lawsuit or screw things up?
So this will almost certainly extend beyond April unless Griffin gets some sort of stroke of conscience and actually concedes. So we are very much gearing up for this. Could be a 6 to 12 month process. Which means that, yes, it is absolutely possible that under new leadership, the state board could decide to take a different position. It could decide to stop defending its prior decision. There's a lot that could go wrong from that. Fortunately, there are other parties that are also involved in defending the state board's original decision. So if the state board formally changes its position, ourselves, Justice Riggs, and some of those lawsuits I mentioned, the DNC, will instead take up the responsibility of arguing why it was that what happened in December under the original composition of the state board was in fact the right outcome. That being said, that will get incredibly complicated and even more expensive than it already is. There are 3 different law firms currently involved representing all the different groups and parties in these lawsuits. So if that happens, you all will definitely hear from us. And so that is why we're going to keep asking you to donate and contribute to the Legal Defense Fund, to the work that Justice Riggs and her legal team are doing, to the work that the NCDP and our legal team is doing to make sure that we are able to not give an inch in the legal fight in front of the courts on this front, but also keep on coming and helping us elevate this message, get it out in front of people. The Republicans have given us indications at different points, including one of the justices on the Supreme Court, that they see how much the press is paying attention. They see how much you all are paying attention, and they know that nothing that they do is going to happen in the darkness. They are going to have to be bad actors if that's what they want to be in public, out loud, and they know that we're going to call them on. So yes, please donate and contribute, but also share the story. Come to the calls on Thursday. Reach out to people on that list. Tell people that this is what the Republicans are doing to make sure that we're able to keep up pressure in every single corner.
Thank you, Kat Lawson. Congresswoman Ross, since you're still on here too, I'm going to ask you one of the original ones that we had in the chat box. How do you fight back against an administration who ignores the courts? And I think we would all argue that Joe Biden has appointed more federal judges, and we are also seeing the benefit of that, right, when it comes to trying to stop some of these executive orders. But how do you fight back against an administration that seems to not want to abide by the rule of law?
So I had this conversation with a constitutional lawyer today, and the bottom line is if they don't abide by what the courts do, there's really only one remedy, and that is criminal contempt. That cannot be used against Donald Trump because he's immune from criminal prosecution. We remember that case, but it can be used against anybody in his administration, including Elon Musk. And so we just have to keep putting on the legal pressure. Of course, Jeff Jackson's part of that. But, you know, a lot of these other lawsuits, they're filed by Common Cause. They're filed by the Council of Churches. They're filed by the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits. We have a coalition and we are not backing down. But it'll be fun to see if we have some criminal contempt.
Thank you, Congresswoman Ross. Another question that I have for you that's in the chat box is, you know, one opinion is that Bud and Tillis are ignoring phone calls. Should we just send messages on their website? What's the best thing to do when representatives ignore the phone calls? And do you think it's worth keep calling?
Keep calling. In the immortal words of Jim Valvano, don't give up, don't ever give up. Now, Bud might not care because he's in the Trump circle and he recently won. Tillis cares very, very much. We are a purple state. As we saw, we can win statewide elections. We can pick up statewide seats like we did with Mo Green. And so Tillis knows that if he ignores the people who are contacting him, it's at his own peril. You know, look, we've all been ghosted. We've all been treated with disrespect in our lives. The most important thing, do not give up. We cannot give up on our state. We cannot give up on our country. We cannot give up on democracy. So just keep doing it. Look, if you don't like the response, do something that makes you happy, like Justice Riggs, walk your dog. But come back and do it again the next day.
Thank you, Congresswoman Ross. The last question that I see right now, unless folks are going to pop more in our YouTube channel, is what is the North Carolina Democratic Party doing to invest in local races? And that's where I think you all are going to have the opportunity to get involved with municipal races that are ongoing across our state this year. As Woodson Bradley said it yesterday, when they go low, we go local. And that's something, Woodson Bradley is one of our newly elected North Carolina state senators out of Mecklenburg County, for anybody on here that's not familiar. But we are, and we're trying to make sure that we're able to hold seats in North Carolina this year, like Huntersville, which is a place out of Mecklenburg County where Democrats had great successes with Mayor Christy Clark and all of our city council candidates out there in 2023 by flipping that city council from red to blue. But we also had those waves across counties like Alamance and Davie and other places across our state as well that needed to see good Democratic wins. And the best way that we can build up for 2026 is to get involved again at the local level with your precincts, because that is how we are also going to be able to organize for municipal races in 2025 that build up into our state legislative districts and races in 2026. Every single thing that we do as a party this year matters the most. And the great thing about it is that North Carolina Dems have got 5 fantastic organizers across every region in the state that are also led by Sarah O'Brien, who you just heard from earlier as our organizing director, that are going to be active in all of our counties this year with our county parties to make sure that you're getting involved. If you're a young person on here tonight too, and you're like, Anderson, maybe I'm a little nervous about getting involved with my county party, that's okay. We've got some great youth auxiliaries that would also love to have you involved with them. Our teen Dems, which are also our high school Dems, our college Dems, and our young Dems, they would love to have you involved. And also a lot of other auxiliaries within the party, whether you have a certain interest that you'd like to take on or an interest group that you're interested in being a part of, we've got them for you. And I think it's a really exciting opportunity for everyone. So Dr. Hardy, I'm not sure if you'd you'd like to talk more about our auxiliaries, but I'd love to pass it over to you to be able to do that if you'd like to.
Absolutely. I am such a huge fan of the auxiliaries because they are an easy on-ramp for folks who are looking to get involved with the state party on some level, but they don't necessarily know where to begin, or they don't necessarily know if they want to go to the big county party meeting. So, or if there's just certain issues that you're particularly interested in. For example, if you're interested in women's reproductive rights and women's reproductive justice, really, then joining the Democratic Women of North Carolina is an excellent way to get started on that. I've been the statewide second vice president. I've been a county chapter president. And so there's local chapters for you to join for pretty much all of the AOs. If you have an interest in a particular issue, like, the coastal issue, or, the small business, whatever it is, we have so many different AOs. And if there's one that we don't have, we welcome you to approach us and let us know, like, hey, there's a constituency group or an issue that I'm really interested in, and I'd like to start an auxiliary for it. So if you're looking to get involved and you're not really sure where to begin, an affiliated or auxiliary organization is the best way to begin.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hardy. And we also had a question on what topic should I be focusing my attention when I'm calling? I feel overwhelmed by the volume. That's okay. I'm hoping that you'll come to Christy's training that she posted in the chat earlier, and we'll make sure that anybody that signed up for this Zoom call tonight will also get all of the links in a wrap-up email tomorrow as well. But 5calls.org is one of the best places that you can start. It'll give you an issue, or you can pick your issue that you'd like to have a script on. They'll produce the script for you, and it's a very easy thing for you to be able to do to get started as an on-ramp. And Christy's going to touch on it more in her training as well. So make sure that you're joining us for that if you're able to. Last question that I see in the chat box right now are, Chair Clayton, what are some of the ways the party is reaching out to build community and expand our coalition and recoup some of the losses from 24? Honestly, it starts with showing up, and it starts with building an opportunity and an apparatus that reaches all 100 counties in North Carolina. Some of the places where we saw some of the best Democratic headwinds, where we saw, our Democrats actually win over in Republican areas, like Representative Lindsay Prather out of Buncombe County that held down an R+3 district in order for us to be successful, keeping a state legislature intact. Also managed to be able to see one of the strongest county parties out of Buncombe County this last year. And so we really want to make sure that when we uplift our county parties, we're able to uplift the grassroots infrastructure that carries our state legislators forward, and that also helps us recruit those people, because we really made sure this year, and thank you, I know there's tons of them on this call, all of the folks that ran for state house and state senate across our state this year, but have also done it in cycles previously to this, because you all are our champions each and every day out there on the ground. If you're interested in running for office this year, you can go to ncdp.org/run-for-office, and we'll make sure we put that in the chat box too. But we've got seats across this state that we need champions to step up and say, we want to hold Republicans accountable. We want to make sure that we are fully funding our schools and that there are advocates everywhere for that, because we realize right now that public school funding is not just tied up in our state legislature. It's one place it's tied up in, but our Supreme Court is also the other place that it's tied up in. And so everything that we're talking about here tonight is the ability to protect North Carolina and the ability to advance our state going forward, because that's exactly what we did in November. We had some hard losses, but we had some incredible wins as well. And what those wins led to was the ability for North Carolina to fare a lot better than other states across the country right now have done. Jeff Jackson is the only Democratic Attorney General in the South right now that's been able to do the work that he has. And every single one of you had a part in that. Justice Allison Riggs holding this seat by 734 votes was every single one of you on this call that made an extra phone call, reached out to your friends, posted about her in a group chat, and we're going to need you to do the exact same thing for Justice Anita Earls for 2026. And we need you to start doing it now, folks, because name recognition is so much in this game, and we want to make sure that folks are hearing from our party and from our candidates, because we know that people are really voting for the person behind it, not just the party this year, especially when you're looking at how politics is shifting so quickly. So those are all of the questions that I see as of right now. I really, really appreciate everybody being on here tonight. We don't want to hold you too long, and we want to make sure that we're respectful of your time always. But I hope what you leave here with are some action items. You know where you're going to start and where you're going to get involved. And also you understand that the North Carolina Democratic Party is really revved up and ready to go when it comes to organizing for the 2025 year. And so please get involved with your precincts. Make sure that you stay up to date with what's happening with our Supreme Court justice justice fight, and we'll keep you posted on that as well. We'll do more of these state of the races and make sure that y'all hear what's coming out of the federal level too, because I know that people still feel extreme anxiety about what's happening nationally. But the best thing that you can do to ease that anxiety is to get involved in your backyard, because that is where your true power is going to impact a race for 26 with Tom Tillis, because we know that North Carolina is the only state in the country that's got a red to blue pickup for our United States Senate right now. And that means the opportunity for us to put a check on the Trump agenda. And I know everyone is worried about whether or not we're going to have an election in 4 years. We have the opportunity to guarantee that we do in 2. But that means to be able to get smarter. And also, we are working on a way to contact. We know that there are 225,000 voters that could be impacted by the lawsuits that Kat talked about earlier. Jefferson Griffin cherry-picked 67,000 of those voters because those are the ones that he decided would impact his race the most. But we also know the number of those voters that are out there, and we're going to make sure we do everything we can to get their voter registrations updated to ensure that we are going on the offense and not just the defense when it comes to defending against Republican extremism, trying to challenge election results in our state. And that also means making sure that we are in touch with county boards of elections, even when they are going to be under Republican control after this. But that means making sure that we've got lawyers in every zip code. So if you're interested in getting involved and you may be an attorney, Kat Lawson would love to have your volunteer expertise as well with our voter protection team. So any way that you've not heard how you can get involved with the party tonight, if you're like, Anderson, I've got a job and I know exactly what I can do for us, please feel free to email us, because there's a job for everybody in this party and we want you to help us tell us what yours is in it. So thank you all so much for joining us here tonight, folks. I really appreciate it. And we will definitely reach out more in the future with just different updates that we have for everybody. But thank you all for being on here tonight. Thank you to my officers. Thank you to the NCPD staff for working so extremely hard at your jobs and what you do. Thank you to all the volunteers and the people that worked hard in this election that are on here tonight. And I hope that all of you feel good about the pathway forward in North Carolina with our Democratic leadership. So thank you, folks. Bye, everybody.